Kia ora, Lara here, and today we are celebrating 1,000 subscribers in a YouTube hop for Amanda Ross. You can find me on social media under Scrappykea, that's on Instagram and Facebook and things like that, to scraplift Amanda Ross. Now, I couldn't find an actual single shot of the layout that I'm scraplifting, but I will link the YouTube video below where she has created this layout. She was working with, I think it's Makers with Heart, sorry if I've got that wrong, and it's sort of a collab group, and they had a mystery packet of things that they send each other, or that one person sends to all of them and they all use it. And also part of this, I think, yeah, so that's one of the things they do, but I think for this one they were sort of showcasing a technique. I'd need to watch the video a bit more closely, but I wanted to mainly scraplift the layout, not copy what she was doing in the video. So I am doing some stenciling, which was the sort of technique that she was showcasing in the video, and to do this I'm doing a mixture of dry and wet ink stenciling. So this stencil I think is called Falling Hearts, and it was created by Confessions of a Paper Addict, which you can find on the Etsy store, and I cut this out on the Cricut using some stencil paper, and I've used this quite a few times, so it's one of those quite cool cut files that you can reuse in the sense when you've created it as a stencil background. So the colours that I have used here are Capri, which is one of my favourite blues, as well as I'm bringing out some Lemonade. So these are the two of the colours that are recommended, or that are featured in the Tutti Frutti collection, which is the papers that I'm going to be using for this. This is my first time using these papers, so yeah, so the other colours that are recommended are Flamingo, Grape and Mint. And I did have these ones aside, but I felt when I looked at the photos that that bluey colour as well as the yellow were sort of going to be contrasty enough and not totally blended in or too merged with what else is going on the page. So now I'm just trimming off the zip strips off 3 of these patterned papers. So at the start there I went through them, and they are double-sided, so there's sort of 2 options for each one. I picked this layout to scraplift because I've wanted to try the curled up strips a few times and I just haven't got to it, so I thought, hey, let's scraplift this one. It gives me a chance to do the technique as well as scraplifting Amanda for her 1,000 YouTubers subscription hop. So Amanda's also running a bit of a prize opportunity or a giveaway for you. So the idea is that people who comment on this and the other videos that I'll link below have the opportunity to win. I think it was some close to my heart bits and pieces on her YouTube channel. So make sure you pop along and see all of the other links that people have created pages. And the main request was, it wasn't necessarily to scraplift Amanda, but it was to use blue in the layout, which is another reason why I chose to use the Tutti Frutti collection for this page. So I have cut out all of these strips and I've just cut them into 1-inch strips. And I'm sort of now laying them out on the page to try and create a little bit of variation across it without it looking too contrived or too organised or too much of a pattern as such. So I've sort of mixed up things, laid them out, used the fronts and the backs of these different pattern papers. So these papers are quite pastel-y. I wasn't sure how I was going to go using them, but I chose a sort of a fun picture of my daughter being a bit I guess a bit cute, a bit not as grown up as she normally is, to document, and so this was quite a cool collection to use for that. So I'm using, I think this is a paper tool here that I am just using to curl up the paper. So I'm sticking it down at variety of lengths. Excuse the vacuum cleaner in the background if you can hear that in the voiceover. My husband's just tidied up a whole lot of the leaves in the yard, and he's now going to try and vacuum them up. He got a leaf blower for sort of a belated birthday present, so he's out there giving it a go. Anyway, back to the page. So I'm just using this to poke in the bottom. It's got a slit in the pieces. I perhaps should have shown a bit of a close-up. It was one of the tools that I actually got when I first signed up with Close to My Heart in the starter kit, or I've forgotten what it was called, but it was something like that anyway. And so I had that tool there, and I just haven't really used it a lot, but it was handy that it was just sitting there. The other thing I've used that for is the odd flower curling that I have done on different, on when I've created different projects and things, so to give them a little bit more texture. But it's quite fun curling up these little pieces of paper. So I probably should have cut out some of this. It's not that much fun for you sitting here watching the paper curl up. I'll tell you a little bit more about the photo that I am scrapbooking. My daughter doesn't live at home. She is studying nursing elsewhere in New Zealand, and it's on sort of the other island. So if you're not from New Zealand, we have 2 main islands, but we actually have another few off the coast as well that are also part of New Zealand, but we talk about the North Island and the South Island. So she's up sort of in the middle to top-ish of the North Island, probably more the middle of the North Island, and I'm sort of in the lower central part of the South Island. So we toyed with going up to see her, and then we were talking about something the cats were doing, and it came out that she'd rather come home to see the cats, even if it's only for a couple of days. So instead of me heading up in the school holidays to catch up with her, she came home for a few days, and it was quite nice that she arrived on Mother's Day, and my son was also around for a brief half hour or so at the same time. So it was quite nice to have them all together, even if it was very briefly. This photo, I was at school working, and my oldest daughter sent me a photo of Katya, who was visiting, sitting in the laundry basket. So just to give a bit of context to this, our cats love sitting in baskets and boxes, and we also get wool call in our food bag deliveries, and some of this was sitting in the bottom of the basket, and the cats just thought this was the best thing ever. So Katya, being the cat lover that she is, decided that she wanted to try sitting in the basket too, to see why the cats like it so much. She commented on the Snapchat that these photos were shared on that she didn't see what they saw in it. However, my daughter about 10 minutes later sent us another photo saying she's still there, so it can't have been all that bad. Anyway, just a little bit of a fun interlude in her little stay with us. So I typed up the journaling that sort of told that story that I've just relayed to you, and I'm then cutting them into strips. This is very similar to what Amanda had done in her layout. She had some strips of journaling in that bottom left corner. Her actual layout had a lot more embellishment, florals and things around her photos. I'm not going to do too many. I really like the way that stencil is just sort of peeking through with the scattered hearts in there. So I'm going to leave that as it is. I had to change tack with my adhesive. My little tape runner ran out of adhesive tape, so I just grabbed the nearest glue I could that would also do the job. And in some ways this glue is better for doing journaling strips because it's a bit more forgiving. You've got a wee bit more repositionable opportunities if it's not quite laid down right or not quite straight. So it worked quite well. Just a couple there needed a little bit more adhesive onto the photo and a little bit of time to dry. So got a few of the stickers that came in this Tutti Frutti collection. I really want to use that strip along the top, but if I go back to Amanda's layout, she actually had some little banners hanging down and using the other parts of the paper. So I'm just creating some of those. So to do that, just cut into the center and then cut into that center point from each side. So you can sort of see that there on each of those that I'm sort of clipping and popping up. If you wanted them even, you can layer them up and do them together. However, I didn't really mind because it's sort of that eclectic dropping down look that I'm going for, like Amanda's layout had. So in the absence of that other tape runner, I had, just before I started the video, topped up my ATG with some acid-free tape. This tape stuff's getting hard to come by, but I do quite like how long that lasts in the big tape runner. A friend and I were discussing recently how she used to use double-sided tape, and so did I for many years. It was sort of, I think, both economical and what was available to us, but more recently we're like, why would we not use tape runners? They're just so they save so much time, and they're just so much simpler than all the little backing pieces of tape that we have left over from the double-sided tape. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of the tape story and adhesive, but the ATG tape replacement or the refill is getting hardish to find, it seems, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on the availability of those. It was quite nice getting a text from a friend the other day who had been looking out for some as well, and she said, hey, this store's got it in stock. This is here in New Zealand, so we both placed an order. So it was quite nice seeing that, how people help each other out with different supplies and things like that when we know that they like it. So I'm using the Here's the Scoop thing, and you'll see there that I cut the ice cream off it. So I didn't want an ice cream because this we're kind of actually in autumn here in New Zealand, but I quite liked the title Here's the Scoop, and I think it fits with the quirky kind of nature of this scrapbook page, and just, I don't know, the cutesy factor or the weird or the zesty or something coming out in this setting. So I'm just choosing a few of the word stickers to pop around in lieu of the floral embellishments that Amanda had used in her layout. So tucking, now I found sort of a sheet of some acrylic dots that the colours will kind of work. They're not exactly the same, but they fit really nicely. So essentially the layout's coming to an end, and remember to check the links below to other people who are joining in on this hop, and also for Amanda's page, where you can if you leave comments on people's page, you'll have an idea of what prizes and things that you can win. Here's some close-up shots just to finish off, just to see some of that curled up paper, and the stickers and the different bits and pieces from the layout in position. Hey, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy having a look at the rest of the layouts created to celebrate Amanda's 1,000 YouTube subscribers.